It is World Hearing Day today, and joining us on the line is Andreas Seelisch, Director of Audiology at Hearing Solutions, to talk a little bit about World Hearing Day and also take questions. So if you have a question, text us at 10-1290. Andreas, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Serena.
All right, so we see that, we hear that hearing loss is a big problem across Canada. 54% of Canadians, in fact, aged 40 to 79, have at least a mild hearing loss. It is actually the most widespread disability here. How big of a problem is this for people? What are the sorts of things that hearing loss affects in your life?
It's a great question. So part of the reason I believe it's a problem is that the onset is really quiet. It's subtle. People don't notice that it's happening. Most people imagine that a hearing loss would be really obvious. You either hear or you don't. But the problem is you don't know what you're not hearing. And for most people, the way hearing loss onsets is that it starts out very mild. It starts out at certain pitches or frequencies, and they filter out certain sounds. You don't necessarily notice that some of those sounds start getting filtered away. And how it impacts speech is that we have some very soft, high-frequency speech sounds that we create by rushing air over our tongue and our teeth, sounds like S's and THs and F. And some of those sounds are produced fairly softly because of that, plus they're high in pitch where we tend to experience the hearing loss first, and they start filtering out of speech, and then speech becomes a little bit less clear than it used to be. And it's not that you're not hearing people talk, but that instead we're perceiving it as mumbling or not as clear as it should be.
Mm-hmm. Andreas, is hearing loss like so many other conditions where it's one of those things that you really do need to get at early, like early intervention is the key?
Absolutely. And most people's instinct is that I'm going to wait and deal with it when I can't get by any longer. And so people will often wait, a decade to dealing with a hearing loss, not realizing the profound impact it's having on them. And as research goes on and on, it's showing that it affects almost every single domain in our life. It affects our psychology, our happiness, our social interactions, our communication and relationships with other people. It affects our job. It's linked with things like how much earning potential we have. And we're finding out in the last decade or so how many other health domains it's connected to. It's linked with things like onset of dementia and cognitive decline, how much cognitive effort we're putting into listening and doing things. We know it's linked with things like risk of falling and diabetes and heart problems. It's linked with a lot of different things. So it is most certainly something that we want to address earlier, because the outcomes are all far more positive when we do something earlier, and we tend to have better success when we do something earlier.
A lot of people I know suffer from tinnitus. I know you can say it both ways. What exactly is it, and what should we do about it?
Absolutely. So tinnitus or tinnitus is this phantom sound. It's a buzzing, a ringing, a rushing. It can be described a number of different ways because people experience it differently. And even though this is a sound that the individual is hearing, it's not being heard around in the environment. And it's very commonly linked with hearing loss. So often when we have hearing loss, some changes at the brain level can cause the tinnitus to start in the background. And it can be very disruptive. For some people's life, it's not a huge deal. They notice it goes away, and it's not a huge problem for them. But for other people, it can be really cyclical. It causes maybe stress or anxiety, which can cause it to get inflamed and get even worse. It can cause loss of sleep, and it can be really disruptive for people. And for people who suffer with tinnitus, a hearing consultant is typically recommended because it allows us to determine whether or not it's likely that it's caused by a hearing loss. And treatment for hearing is actually one of the most successful treatments that we can offer for tinnitus sufferers as well. Fortunately, though, many of those people who suffer with tinnitus, it's not too problematic. Simply the act of understanding it better and having some strategies to manage it at home can be extremely therapeutic for them.
There's a bit of shame around hearing, at least a feeling of shame. Is hearing loss one of those things that you think is vastly underreported because of that apprehension surrounding simply seeking out treatment?
Absolutely. It's doubly underreported because the statistic that we talked about earlier, where more than half of people aged 40 to 79 have at least a mild hearing loss, a huge portion of those individuals, it's unperceived. They're not even aware of it. And so that's problem number one. And then you stack on top of it, even when people are aware of it, there's still stigma associated with it. You know, we overcame this with glasses. Once upon a time, it was almost shameful to have glasses. Now, I mean, people wouldn't think twice of it, and some people are having glasses just because they like the aesthetic of it. We're not there yet with hearing, although we're coming around a corner where this new generation is thinking about things a little bit different. The silent generation was very guilty of putting it off until I can't deal with it anymore. Whereas, you know, the current generation, we want to live our best life, and if having a device, piece of technology enables me to do so, why would I rob myself of that opportunity? And so people are starting to think about it more as not a hearing aid like a crutch, but hearing as technology that's enabling them to live a better existence. You know, if I'm Bluetooth streaming a telephone call into my hearing devices, I can hear better, and that's a better experience. I might buy another piece of technology to do the same thing. I would buy Bluetooth headphones, and my hearing aids can act in a similar fashion where they deliver the TV signal directly to my hearing aid. So we're coming around a corner where people are changing their mindset and not viewing it like a crutch. They're viewing it as something that enables them to live a better life. And why wouldn't that be a good thing?
We have a question from a texter here about testing. Is there any free testing available anywhere?
Absolutely. So hearing testing isn't covered by OHIP. It was delisted quite some time ago. Fortunately, a number of clinics like our own, our Hearing Solutions Clinic at Masonville, we offer complimentary testing. Part of the reason we offer the assessment at no charge is because we know, like the data tells us, 7 to 10 years for someone with a hearing loss to come in and do something about it. And the cost of an assessment is sometimes another excuse or barrier for people to not even know what's going on. So we certainly offer assessments, and that's hopefully reducing that barrier. Another painless way of kind of seeing, and sometimes people have noticed things in their life. They're maybe asking to repeat, or masks have maybe been a problem, and they're having a bit of a harder time than before we were dealing with masks. But they're not quite sure, and they're nervous to take that step of stepping into a clinic. We have an online screener on our website. So our Hearing Solutions website has a free screener. You go on, you test in the comfort of your own home, and that should give you a pretty good idea of whether or not you should go into a clinic and have a full assessment done, or whether it's maybe okay to put it off for a little bit longer.
Good to know. Well, Andreas, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
All right, bye-bye. Andreas Seelisch, Director of Audiology at Hearing Solutions. It is 7:30, and Alessio Danini is standing by with news.